It is 9:35 in the Twin Cities. Esme Murphy sitting in for John Hines. Let's talk finances, retirement, the local impact of the hurricanes in the South with Trey Peterson from the Haven Financial Group. Trey, thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Esme. Great to be with you.
All right. Listen, I don't know if our producer, Kyle Sheely, it's his last day today, is setting this first subject up to make me feel guilty, which maybe this is what it's all about. Kyle, thank you. You want to talk about saving for retirement and how the spending that people make on their kids' activities is limiting the amount of money they're putting into their retirement. Yes, it is. That's all I can say. What advice do you have? Because I can't even think, and I know there are thousands of people out there, well-meaning parents, who are thrilled that their kids are passionate about something. And I do think it's great when you have kids, whether it's soccer or dance or music or art or drama, and people want to, help them and put money into it. And, certainly nobody did that for me, but these days everybody does. What advice do you have for parents?
Yeah, great question. So a couple of things. So I was an athlete myself, football, wrestling, and rugby at Apple Valley High School several years ago. And I've even coached high school wrestling for a little bit. But what's interesting is as a financial advisor, oftentimes I run into people, many of my clients, that are very generous with their kids and even their grandkids, but to a fault. Interestingly enough, a new survey was recently done, and they said the average person spends around $100 to $500 a month for each of their kids to play sports. Now, if you have 2-3 kids plus, you can see where that's a problem. One of the crazy things, they said 20% of people are paying at least $1,000 a month per kid for sports.
I believe it. And there is enormous pressure. What do you think is sort of an appropriate amount?
That's a great question. I would answer it probably this way. It depends upon the sports you play. Again, my biggest sport was wrestling, which was a lot less expensive than, say, hockey. I think what I would do, if you have a kid that plays multiple sports, maybe it's saying, and it depends on how many kids you have, but be realistic. Maybe it's saying, hey, we're willing to pay for one sport. If you want to play more than one, that's great, but we're going to give you jobs to earn that money, or we're going to recommend that you get a part-time job in the summer. Maybe instead of going to that kids camp that sports camp that's $1,000, $1,500 or $2,000, $1,500 or $2,000, we're going to recommend that you work, do what you can that's the least expensive, but get a job and help pay for some of those other sports. So, be realistic with them. Maybe make a deal with them. Hey, we'll pay 50% of this sport if you pay the other half.
Well, and I think that's a good point. I also think that it is important. I really think it's important that parents understand that even if their kid is really good, and I've talked to the sports people about this, and I've talked to a lot of hockey people about this, even if they're the phenoms at 7 or 8, it doesn't mean they're going to get a college scholarship. And I honestly think, I know so many parents who really think they've got a shot at it. And I think that's an incredible mistake, and it puts so much pressure on the kids, and it's just a disaster.
Well, it is. And, a lot of these schools, they'll do fundraisers, and unfortunately, these fundraisers oftentimes backfire. I see kids that, they get these coupons they're supposed to sell, and they don't sell them, and their parents will say, you know what, little Joey, I'll buy them all as long as you promise to sell them after. And as you may know, oftentimes the good parent buys all these fundraising options up, and then the kid never goes and sells them. So, again, my recommendation is keep it simple. Look at your budget. Don't say we're going to pay for all the kids' sports and then look to see what we have left for, say, retirement. Set it up to say, here's what our budget is, son or daughter, here's what we can afford at this time. Anything else, let's put together a plan to help you raise that money.
Right. I think that boat is already left in my house. And the problem is it's not, and people also talk about, people always mention hockey, but I think, what's happened is I've got many friends whose kids are into soccer. And again, I do think it's a positive when a kid is really active. I've been very blessed. I've got 2 teenagers, and they have been very active. And God knows we have spent so much money and our own time. And I don't mind. I all those hours of driving were some of the best it was just kind of fun to be in the car with them most of the time. But, I think, and they have not gotten into trouble. And I think that part of it is that. They don't have time to get into trouble. But I do think it's a discussion that parents really do need to have and also consider the financial impact. I think you've got a very good point. I also know that you've been tracking the local impact of these hurricanes. And obviously, we've felt it at the pump, but there are also going to be other impacts as well. How much higher do you think gas prices are going to go?
It looks like, so over the last 2 weeks, they've gone up about 30 cents. Nationwide, gas has gone up to about $2.69. They have shot up really quickly. It looks like, as of right now, obviously, they're looking at all the different damage that's been done. As fast as they shoot up, unfortunately, they don't come down that fast. So I would look for that, the relief around the gas pump to begin now that Harvey has passed, but don't affect it to be as quickly as the prices shot up. It's going to start coming down, but it's definitely going to be a slow drop as they assess things.
Right. It's just, it's sort of a shock because we've gotten so used to it being lower, and then it's like, whoa, how is it suddenly that much for a half tank or a tank? And it's, having a teenager that drives too, I'm just going, I guess he does need more money there. But anyway, in terms of food prices, I know I was listening to an interview here on News Radio 830 WCCO with a citrus grower. Maybe it was a report from CBS News, and it sounds like some of their crops have, for obvious reasons, been wiped out.
Yeah, so one of the big questions is, how big did Irma hit Florida and what did it affect? Some of the fruit there, as you brought up, oranges are the big one, also citrus, sugarcane, tomatoes, one of my favorite, watermelon, and then cucumbers. But the oranges have been hit the hardest, and so a lot of those damaging winds and water is really what hurt those Florida crops. So we'll definitely notice, a slight increase here at the stores. It's hard, when something like that happens in Florida to realize why it's affecting us. I think those prices are definitely going to shoot up for a little bit, but as they assess, that'll change again if the prices increase or decrease.
And you also talk about interest rates as well.
Yeah, so interest rates is a big topic right now. Obviously, we don't know the full economic impact of Harvey or Irma for a while. It's going to take some time. What we do know is it's going to put a temporary dent in the U.S. job market. Retail sales, manufacturing, it's definitely going to affect those, especially with having, the two back-to-back hurricanes. That's pretty rare. We did already have two hikes in 2006 and 2017. They did raise rates twice. They were planning on raising the rates again in September. Now investors are expecting them to hold that off and kind of sort through the data. I don't think they'll increase it here in September, but there could be a third raise still here in 2017 when they meet in December.
Another issue, there have been stock market losses in the aftermath of these hurricanes. There are a lot of analysts who really feel that stocks are overvalued, that there really is a bubble here. I don't like to say it. I know a lot of people don't even want to think about it. But what are your thoughts about that? Because this has been an extraordinary run.
Yeah, well, we're in the second highest bull market that we've ever been in. Stocks posted losses leading up to Hurricane Irma, as obviously a lot of investors were really worried about the impact that would have. As of Monday morning, the storm's wrath was not as catastrophic as feared. It kept getting toned down from a, Series 5 down to a 2. The good news is right now is a really good time. Again, nobody has a crystal ball, but right now is a really good time to take an inventory really of your portfolio, making sure that however you're invested, that it meets your risk tolerance. I think personally as a financial advisor that being diversified and having the right risk for your current age is more important now than ever. Obviously, it's challenging, when things are good, and they're good right now. It's challenging to think about pulling back on some of that risk. But one of the things, again, I would recommend is consult with the financial professional. Make sure that you're on track. And I don't think we're going to have another 2008, knock on wood. But if we did have some sort of correction, make sure that you're in a spot where you're comfortable with the losses that your portfolio could withstand.
And in terms of, we're chatting with Trey Peterson, the Haven Financial Group. I know that there are a lot of people who are listening who either have relatives who've retired to Florida, relatives who maybe decided in the Texas Gulf Coast. Maybe people here are thinking that would be their dream as well, or maybe they are thinking about getting that condo in Florida if they can finally afford it. What are you having any discussions about that? Because it would seem to me that these hurricane events, there's evidence that there are going to be more of them. The waters in the Gulf, the waters in the Atlantic are warming. And when these events are occurring, there are a lot of scientists who say they're going to be more extreme. What do you tell clients? I mean, does that conversation ever come up?
Yeah, you know what? I do have a number of clients that are definitely snowbirds. I would say it's all about risk management. Again, none of us know, what the risk is. We do know there's more risk there than other areas where it's just as warm. So the conversation that I have with my clients is, we kind of go through a risk analysis of how comfortable they are with risk. And it's on a scale of 1 to 99, 1 being your money's guaranteed safe, 99 being let's go to Vegas and throw it on the table. So I think that conversation just starts with, how risky are you? If you're looking to buy a home somewhere warm like Florida, other areas that don't have the same amount of risk potential. And that's kind of how I help just guide my clients as when you're in retirement, it's more important to have a risk assessment of all of your investments, not just your money in the stock market, than ever before.
Right. I know. And obviously Florida, a wonderful place. I do know, journalist friends, TV friends who had, who lived in Florida before 2008, who owned homes, and they still have not recovered in terms of the housing stock there. And obviously you've got the, risk of hurricanes and these, events that can be catastrophic. It's obviously something that, good point, get a risk assessment, try and figure it out, because it is a beautiful place. Certainly it's awfully nice there. Nice to take a swim in the middle of January or February, but something to consider, I would say.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Trey Peterson from the Haven Financial Group, thank you so much for your advice this morning.
Yeah, thank you, Esme.
All right, the Lindus Construction time check, 9:48. Time to make your home energy efficient with Season Guard windows. Season Guard windows. Season Guard windows. Season Guard.